Hey, welcome to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. I'm Arif Halaby along with Jeff Gerard on your place for news, talk, information, kind of helping your family get out of debt, manage money, plan for your future. That's really what Total Financial Solutions is all about. It's keeping some of your money safe, putting you in a place where you don't have to worry about retirement, worrying about the financial stresses that for most of us has been there our entire life. So that's what Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour is all about. I'm Arif Halaby along with Jeff Gerard, helping your family manage some of your Roth IRA conversions, traditional IRAs, what they're all about. So where does that come into play? In other words, for a lot of people, you have a retirement account. It's called a traditional IRA, or maybe you have a bunch of old retirement accounts called 401ks for most people. If you work for a for-profit company, then the 401k was really the choice of the day. It's what most people created and lived in, and that 401k plan, often in a lot of people's lives, will go on and become something different. In other words, you leave the job, you figure out you got to do something different with the account. So what do? Well, a lot of companies will say, hey, listen, you have to take that money with you. You can't keep it here. Sometimes they'll allow you to keep it there for a short period of time, sometimes for a long period. But after a while, they're saying, you can't keep this here forever, so you're going to have to do something with it.
That's right. And what most people will typically do at that point when they're forced to make a decision is roll that money over. Now, if you do that, remember, all the money you've put into a 401k, you have not paid income taxes on. So that's a very important thing in how you take that money with you. That's the key. So that rollover into an individual retirement account or an IRA, a traditional IRA in this case, preserves that tax status, if you will, and doesn't cause any taxable events. Because let's say you had $50,000 or $100,000 in your 401k and you cash that out, it would be as though you made another $100,000 or $50,000 in income. You'd be hit with a tax penalty or at least taxes that year, and maybe penalties if depending on your age. So rolling that over preserves the taxes and lets you have a little bit more latitude. Remember, when you had that 401k, your company hired a company to manage the retirement, and they gave you a set of choices, and those choices were given to you. Basically, you followed whatever choices you were given. And you check some boxes and your money was arranged in that fashion. When you take it out of there, you have an IRA, you have way more options. You can do many more things with that money potentially. And in a lot of cases, that's what we're finding outside of that retirement plan. So then comes the tax conversation. You've had money that you've put into this account for many years that you haven't paid taxes on, but you will have to pay taxes on it someday. And we hope that in retirement, we're in a lower tax bracket than we were when we were working. But we're not finding that that's always the case, is it, Arif?
No, for a lot of people, when you're younger, you have a couple of things happening. Tax write-offs called your children, business write-offs. You may even have income coming into a couple of different sources where you have write-offs like rental property, so there's depreciation. All of those things are usually a little heavier at the younger you are because that's when you're paying house mortgage interest. You might still have the house payment for 30 years, but the first 10 or 15 or 20 years, a significant portion of that payment is interest, maybe as upwards of 80% of that payment. So that means if you're making a payment of $3,000 a month to your home, well, it could be $2,200, $2,300 is all interest.
That's a lot.
However, now, fast forward and you are 60 years old, you're still making the same payment, but all of it is principal or nearly all of it. So very little tax write-offs. And by the way, here's a big chunk of money called your 401k, called your retirement account, called your pension. So we have to be very careful if you're in that vein of receiving dollars coming in, because I don't want you to be stuck in a position where you have no write-offs and you have all taxable accounts. So a Roth conversion comes in, which gives you places to say, how do I slowly drip those dollars in while I have all my tax write-offs? How do I drip those dollars in while I'm not paying significant income tax on them because I'm in a lower bracket? Now, that's counterintuitive because a lot of people have gone through life thinking, oh, when I retire, I'll be in a lower bracket. Well, that's the way it used to be. In the late 80s and in the mid-90s, everything changed, except the folks were still on that same road. Even though we made a right turn, we were still on track for a set of rules that don't exist anymore. or at least are significantly modified. So you have to know what kind of game you're playing and what rules come into play, just so you don't end up in a problem scenario.
Right, and I love what you're talking about. We're going off of old assumptions and old methods of thought when it comes to planning out our retirement and projecting what our tax bracket will be. Well, if we're still thinking in the mindset of the top tax bracket's 80 or 90%, well, that doesn't exist anymore. We're about half of what that is at a maximum in a lot of cases. Now, look, we're not tax experts, but we're just showing you what type of conversations you should probably be having with your tax professionals, because getting railroaded into let's put money into our 401k, let's make sure everything is pre-tax and not have a tax conversation, you're going to be like a lot of folks, or you could end up like a lot of folks where they have this big bucket of dollars in retirement, never been taxed, and oh, by the way, there's something called RMD, Required Minimum Distribution.
Yes.
Now, when you're 70 and a half years old, the government says, look, that's wonderful you saved all this money, but you've deferred it from taxes long enough. Look, let's tell a little secret here, okay, just between you and me. Your retirement accounts are the retirement accounts of the government.
That's right.
So when you take these monies out, they know that they have income taxes coming to them. So that's no secret, really. But
yeah, a few years ago, by the way, Jeff, a few years ago, you guys, was the first time in the history, we broadcast it here right when we found out about it, where the Obama administration required every single retirement account holder and company in the United States to report their balance.
Incredible.
Do you realize that never mattered anymore? It never happened before. What happened before was the contribution. Were you eligible to put money in and how much? And then the second part was the next time they heard from the company was at age 70 and a half, which meant at age 70 and a half, you have to start taking out that required minimum distributions. However, as Jeff was pointing out, your retirement account is the current piggy bank for the government. The federal government started spending money. I think that's why the Obama administration really ran up nearly $20 trillion in debt to astronomical levels. In fact, there was more money spent in the 8 years of the last administration into debt than the previous 225 years of U.S. history. Can you at least get your head around that? I understand a trillion is, whatever. It just doesn't mean a lot. $100 means a lot to us, but a trillion, we lose our emotional connection to it. But when you understand that all of the debt that was accumulated from the beginning of time as the United States until the Bush administration left, there was more money in 8 years. Now, there's all sorts of reasons for it, and you can say whatever you want, but understand that money still has to be paid back. So I think that was the comfort level in the administration kind of saying, well, it's at least we know we're going to have some money coming down the pipe, because Jim is this age and eventually he's going to retire, and Susie's that age and eventually she's going to retire.
And we know how much is in their 401k or their IRA because the company told us.
I think that is the only answer you're going to have to get out of the mess, because other than that, you have to realize these dollars are going to have to be paid back, and somebody has to pay them back. So your retirement account is a part of their plan. So how do you strategize to make sure you take care of you and your family first? Well, that is going to come under a couple of things. As you age and as you get closer to retirement, and if you have a year where you have a significant amount of write-offs, and when you complete your taxes, your CPA will show you on the first page you have a loss carry forward. Now, Jeff said it, I'm going to say it again. We are not your CPAs, we're not your tax advisors. I want you to ask them. And if they're not sure, you're not sure, you can always call us, and I don't mind being on a three-way call with them and saying, hey, can you point this out to us? How much can they convert from a traditional IRA over into a Roth, which means it is never taxed? That money or the earnings are never taxed again. How much can they convert? And if we know that, then we can work with your CPA. We can adjust your retirement accounts to move whatever over they tell us to. And now those dollars are never taxed again. That's a very important part because we're probably going to get worse before we get better, right? Everybody wants to spend money and everybody's spending money, and President Trump wants to spend money, and the Social Security is not going anywhere. And that's one of the largest amounts of debt that we have as a nation is the money that we've taken out. Because in 1995, 96, 97, the Newt Gingrich, Speaker of the House, and President Clinton at the time took significant dollars out of Social Security. They took the trust fund and they took the money out. And that's what they spend. And then they replaced it with IOUs. And they say, it's no big deal. Well, now, today, there's more money coming out than's going in. So the government has to come up with the cash to pay it. Well, that's wonderful, right at a time when we have $20 trillion in debt. So we have to be thinking long-term here so that your financial strategies and whatever it is that safer money plays a part of, right, which is we don't lose money when the market goes down, because I think something's going to happen. Just let's play make-believe for a minute. When the baby boomers are working and they're 20 years old, 25 years old, they're probably not putting a lot of money in their retirement accounts. That's just the way it goes. But over time, you're going to start putting more money in your retirement accounts. Why? Because you're settled in. You're now 30 years old, 35, 40, 45. You kind of know what job. You got a couple of promotions. You kind of know where you're going to live, and you know how many children you're going to have. So you start feeling good about putting more money for the future. So when you put those into your retirement accounts, what do most 401k plans invest in?
Mutual funds, stock market, bonds, all types of securities. Yeah.
So those dollars are going in, and that means people are buying.
That's right.
Which does what to the price?
Makes it go up.
Right? When there are 3 people wanting to buy, there's only one piece of stock. What happens to the price? It goes up. But now the baby boomers are on the other side. Now some of them are being laid off. They've been laid off. I just met with somebody earlier today, was laid off at age 62. He wasn't planning on retiring at 62, wasn't prepared to retire at 62, but he was laid off after nearly 20 years of work.
Wow.
So he has to choose. Do I pull money from my retirement accounts? Do I turn on Social Security? So here is somebody who was going to be putting in money and then last summer was laid off. And he says, what do I do? So part of this is for you to realize that these dollars that are going into the system are buying things. Well, now people are not putting in anymore. Maybe because they have 2 part-time jobs. Maybe because their one full-time job isn't paying enough anymore. And now they have to take money out. So very soon there will be more people selling than buying. So now what happens to the price?
Well, it could go down.
We can call it widgets. We can call it cars. You can call it anything you want. But if there's more people selling something than are buying, the price usually goes down. It's called economics 101. So what will happen? I'm not sure. I don't know. I just think something is going to happen. And that something that's going to happen may, in fact, impact your retirement account. When we come back, we're going to talk about Roth conversions, some of the changes and challenges with it, and some of the things to watch out for, and some questions to ask your CPA, because this is the time of year we're doing it. Some questions to ask your CPA. And don't just take the quick flippant answer from anybody. Your CPA, us, anybody. Don't just take that quick answer, but in fact, I want you to go and ask a couple of questions, and we'll have those for you when we come back. So grab your pen and paper. I'm Arif Halaby. That's Jeff Gerard on your place for News Talk Information. This is Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. I'll be right back.